we love a window seat. There is a strange, almost primal satisfaction in watching someone through a pane of glass, knowing they cannot see you back. Perhaps that is why we are so obsessed with interviews, specifically, the ones that go wrong. We watch as a journalist sharpens a question, and we wait for the tiny crack in the subject's composure. But every so often, the window shatters. We are not talking about a sweaty politician caught in a lie. We are talking about the interviews that, when viewed today, make your blood run cold. They are the tapes where the monster waves at the camera, smiles at the host, and essentially confesses, except no one is listening yet. These are the disturbing old interviews that hit very different now. They are the moments the mask slipped, and we all failed to catch it. History is a terrible editor. It leaves the context intact but cuts away the consequences. When we look back at the infamous sit-downs with Jimmy Savile, R. Kelly, or Jeffrey Epstein, we are not just watching an interview, we are watching a crime scene. The clues are all there, buried in a smirk, hidden in a verbal slip, or disguised as eccentricity. The tragedy is that most of these interviews were conducted not by aggressive prosecutors, but by friendly hosts. They were designed to charm us, to rehabilitate an image, or simply to fill a time slot. Instead, they became unwitting documentaries of guilt. Today, we are going to press play on 5 tapes. We will dissect the moment Louis Theroux realized he had been used by a predator, listen to the chilling silence of Bill Cosby, decode the secret language of a rock star, and watch a financier debate the devil with a straight face. This is the anatomy of an interview that aged like milk left in the sun. Our first stop is the United Kingdom, 2000. Louis Theroux was the king of the awkward pause. His style was never aggressive, it was inquisitive, almost childlike. He was the perfect foil for Jimmy Savile, the eccentric, tracksuit-wearing knight who raised millions for charity and seemed to live in a bizarre world of cigars and gold jewelry. Theroux recently spoke on the Table Manners podcast about the shoot. He revealed that by the time he got to Savile, he was already running out of famous people to interview. He was dealing with people who are on the downside of their careers. But with Savile, something felt off from the start. Watch the tape closely. Theroux asked Savile about the rumors. You have to remember, in 2000, the public didn't know the scale of the horror. But the rumors were there. Savile looks at Louis and says, "It's easier for me, as a single man, to say I don't like children, because that puts a lot of salacious tabloid people off the hunt." That was the hint. The deflection. He didn't say, "I am not a predator." He said, "I have a policy of saying I don't like children." It was a verbal loophole. He was bragging about how he manipulated the media to leave him alone so he could continue his work, his real work. Louis tried to report him after the interview. A woman came forward. Nothing happened. The system failed because the hints were too abstract, too monstrous to compute. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, a different type of mask was slipping. In 2019, R. Kelly sat down with Gayle King. He was livid. He stood up, paced the room, and beat his chest. "I didn't do this stuff. This is not me. I'm fighting for my life," he screamed. But listen to the logic. When asked if he held women against their will, he scoffed, "How stupid would it be for me, with my crazy past, to be a monster and hold girls against their will, chain them up in my basement?" He didn't deny the act because it was immoral, he denied it because it was stupid. That is the psychology of a narcissist. He wasn't horrified by the suffering, he was insulted that you thought he would be clumsy enough to get caught. We need to turn the volume down for this one. The most disturbing noises aren't always screams. Sometimes, they are silence. In 2014, Bill Cosby was still America's dad to many. But the walls were closing in. Barbara Bowman had written a harrowing piece detailing how Cosby allegedly drugged and assaulted her. Hannibal Buress had called him a rapist on stage. Cosby agreed to an interview with NPR Scott Simon to promote an art exhibit. He thought it would be a safe space. The tension in the audio is unbearable. Scott Simon, professionally obliged, asks, This question gives me no pleasure, Mr. Cosby, but there have been serious allegations raised about you in recent days. Do you have any response to those charges? Asterisk. Silence. You can hear the air conditioners humming. You can hear Simon shuffling his papers. He tries again, asterisk, I want to give you the chance. Asterisk. More silence. Cosby doesn't say, I am innocent. He doesn't say lawyer. He just shuts down. He refuses to acknowledge the reality of the question. He sits there, stone-faced, until the interviewer is forced to pivot back to the African art. That silence was a confession. An innocent man would be indignant. A guilty man, cornered and used to controlling the room, simply tries to erase the question from existence. He knew that saying nothing was safer than lying because lying would require him to engage with the truth. But the most bizarre tension comes from a 2010 interview that resurfaced recently following the death of Ian Watkins. The Lost Prophets frontman is serving 35 years for horrifying crimes, including the attempted rape of a baby. In a MySpace livestream, the band was answering fan questions. A user named Baby Girl asked, asterisk, what is the band's guilty pleasure? Asterisk. Watkins looks down the barrel of the lens. He smirks. He points at the username. You just answered it, he says. His bandmates, oblivious, chatter on about music. He then looks back at the camera, knowing he is hiding in plain sight. Asterisk, people watching will be like, did he just say that? Asterisk, he adds. He was gloating. He was confessing to an audience of millions, laughing at the fact that they thought it was a joke. The tension exists because we, the viewers in the present, want to reach through the screen and shake his bandmates awake. Look at his eyes, we scream. But they can't hear us. The tape rolls on. The emotional gut punch of these tapes usually comes not from the villain, but from the people forced to clean up the mess afterward. Take Louis Theroux. He recently admitted that the Seville interview didn't just haunt him, it ruined his access. He became radioactive. Agents didn't want their A-list clients sitting next to the man who shared a sofa with a pedophile. Louis said that doing the Seville show branded him as someone who talks to washed-up people. Imagine that burden. You try to expose evil, and instead, you are tarred with the same brush. You shake hands with the devil, and for the rest of your career, people ask if your palm is still warm. Then there is the collapse of the ideology. Look at the Duggar family. Josh Duggar, convicted of receiving child sexual abuse material, sat in a cell and texted his parents. He didn't apologize to his victims. He accused his mother of caring more about PR than anything else. The emotional break here is the family unit. We watched the Duggars on TLC for years, a wholesome, God-fearing family. But the tapes and texts reveal a rot, a system where image was everything, and the children were collateral damage. But perhaps the most disturbing emotional shift belongs to Ghislaine Maxwell. In July 2025, the Department of Justice released transcripts and audio of her interview. She was trying to get a pardon. She was cooperating. But MSNBC's Lawrence O'Donnell pointed out the detail the transcripts left out, the laughter. O'Donnell described it as the most perverse thing in the room. Ghislaine Maxwell laughed the most, he said. And their laughter was joined by the 4 people from the Trump Justice Department sitting in that room with a convicted sex trafficker. They laughed. They laughed about the trafficking of children. They laughed about the ruined lives. That is the emotional break, realizing that to these people, the horror is just a negotiation tactic. It's a joke. And for a few hours in that room, the government seemed to laugh along with her. So, what is the truth hiding in these tapes? The truth is that predators don't hide in the shadows wearing black capes. They hide in plain sight, using the very mechanisms of fame, the interview, the documentary, the charity telethon as their alibi. Listen to Harvey Weinstein. In a jailhouse interview with The Hollywood Reporter in early 2026, he didn't deny the acts with a simple not guilty. He rationalized them. When a guy invites you to his hotel room in the middle of the night, you know what's on the agenda, he said. There it is. The truth of the predator's mind, blame transference. He admits the meeting happened, admits the power imbalance, but blames the victim for walking through the door. They wanted to be part of the club, he claimed. Jeffrey Epstein did the same thing in a coaching session with Steve Bannon. Bannon asked Epstein if he was the devil himself. Epstein replied, "No. But I do have a good mirror star." A good mirror. Think about that. He sees himself clearly. He knows he is a Tier 1 sex offender. He knows the damage. But instead of repentance, he views it as a fixed variable, like his height or his hair color. He accepts the label but rejects the shame. The truth is that these interviews hit differently now because we have finally decided to believe the victims. In the 90s and 2000s, we watched Jimmy Savile and thought, what a weird old man. Today, we watch it and see the manipulation. We see the grooming of the nation. And sometimes, the truth is accidental. In 1995, the Mark Fuhrman tapes exploded the O.J. Simpson trial. But look at Fuhrman today. He died recently, remembered mostly for perjury and racist rants. But in his interview tapes from the 80s, you hear the rot of the LAPD culture, a culture that destroyed its own credibility, allowing a murderer to walk free because the detective was a liar. The truth is a fragile thing. One bad interview can shatter a case. One good interview, viewed too late, can shatter an illusion. We consume interviews like candy. We watch celebrities plug their movies, rock stars promote their albums, and reality stars cry on couches. But every once in a while, we get a Rosetta Stone, a piece of media that unlocks the horror of the past. The impact of these disturbing tapes is that they destroy the concept of charming. We can no longer look at a charismatic villain and say, well, he seems nice. We know better now. We listen for the silence of Cosby. We watch for the smirk of Watkins. We hear the rationalization of Weinstein. These interviews are permanent scars on the timeline of pop culture. They serve as a warning to every journalist: the person on the other side of the table might not be a guest. They might be a perpetrator using your platform as a shield, ***. And for us, the audience, they force a painful question: if we missed it then, what are we missing right now? The tape is rolling. The guest is smiling. And history is watching.